Welcome to the demonstration portion of the book-based process art and demo webinar workshop. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of ways to create a wonderfully action-packed and movement-based art session for your children based on the book Swatch, The Girl Who Tamed Color by Julia Denos. So again, we're using this book, and if you haven't already, you could download the workbook and the information on how to do the story analysis that goes along with this. But the idea is that the project will have come after you've done your story analysis and you are ready to dive into the art experience together. Okay, so let's get started and talk about some of the supplies you're going to need. We talked about a little bit of the supplies in the slide version of the webinar, but now we're going to show you some of these supplies also. So what you're going to want is some sort of sturdy paper or canvas. You want this because we're going to be doing things on here that require a lot of physical movement, and if you can make it bigger, even better. You can also use things like long strips of butcher paper to cover the floor with, to let kids work on and do more of a collaborative art piece using these processes that I'm going to show you. If you're using these pieces, you're going to want to make sure that it's bigger and that you're going to work probably best on the floor. You covering your work area in a tarp or in some sort of covering, so that way that the kids work on top of a covered surface, because this is going to get messy. All right, let me show you a couple of the other supplies that you're going to start off with. And we're going to just kind of break this down as part 1, part 2 and 2.5, and then part 3. So part 1 is kind of an introduction to the ideas of the structure that we saw in the book. So when you're doing your story analysis and talking to them about what do you see, and it's like there's circles, and a lot of the kids will point out there's a lot of lines. I don't know if you can see that in here. There's a lot of lines inside the drawings where either paint has splattered or pen marks have been added for texture. So we're going to kind of build that into this process of, well, what does it look like to play with lines and thin shapes. And we're going to do that on our paper or canvas, and then also using things like jar lids, so the rims of the jar lids, and then also the pieces here that kind of go inside the jar. Okay, and then so those are kind of our circular shapes we're going to provide, and then we're going to also provide things like a large popsicle stick or any other flat, straight edge, something like a ruler, or even what works really and is really fun because they're nice and long are those big long paint sticks. Those ones where you stir the paint, you buy at like a hardware store. Okay, I like to present all of this on just a very low-rimmed, open-ended basket or plate, so that it's just kind of, it's there and ready for them to experiment with. I also like to put on these little pencils. If you can see, this is just a pencil that's been sharpened about 3/4 of the way down, so that it's easy for little hands to access and use. Okay, how would you set this up? You would lay this down onto, you could actually do this part at a table. You don't need to do this part on the floor yet, although you can if you want. I would lay this piece out for people to work on, and then I would also have this little basket, maybe a couple of these set up throughout your room if you're doing it for a large group of children, or if it's just your own, you just need the space to work on, and then this basket that has your items in to do the straight edges and the round edges. Okay, I'm going to lay this on my work surface so that you can then see, and I'm going to bring you down. See here. I'm going to move our mic, make sure you guys can still hear me. Okay, so here's our work surface, and here is our, we'll put this here so you can kind of see it, but it's more of just letting the children, leaving this out and having them come over afterwards and say, okay, what can you do with these pieces? So letting them kind of explore and experiment, tracing around these pieces around, tracing inside, and seeing what you can do here, and kind of letting them kind of explore that feeling. Sometimes, with very little children, I wouldn't necessarily use pencils. We might put out pastels, or chalk even's fun, or markers. I like to use things that make them have a little bit more of a commitment, that they have to push that pressure down on there, so crayons or things like that. Let's get out the straight edge here. I'm just going to add these in. Part of what we're doing, and part of the story, is because part of what the children will discover is that, you know, Swatch likes to, she captures those colors, and she puts them into jars. And so we're using and incorporating this element of a jar as part of our process here. And what she then does, though, is she realizes is after a while that those colors, they don't want to be in there. So we're just kind of letting them, it's just letting them explore and kind of see what they do. And you can ask them things like, what happens if you overlap one of these? What happens if you put a circle on top of another one? What do you think will happen? And doing that and then pulling out and seeing that, oh, look, it's doubling up. And giving them those observations like, can you fill the whole page with circles? What would that look like? How do you think you would do that? How does that look? Do you want to do that? But this can also be part of explaining that we're making a track for colors. We're going to use these circles as like there are jars, and we're going to track colors in them and see what happens from there. Okay, so here's what our artwork looks like. I'm going to kind of bring this up again. Alrighty, here it is. This is kind of like our color track that we have built. So this is part one. And if I was doing this, this might be something that I would do as part of maybe day one. After we read the book, we might start be like, let's build our color tracks just using these very basic materials. The next day, I would have had this tucked away somewhere, so I'll tuck mine away. And then we would start doing some color exploration and some color mixing. Let me just put this to you first, though. This is why I call this part 2 and 2.5. Because you could introduce these concepts of color mixing and giving children the opportunity to kind of mix the colors up if you wanted, right? And have them kind of look at the colors, identify what they see throughout the book, right? And then kind of going through here and picking out what colors they might want to create or add to their palette. Because we're going to basically create a palette for them to paint with, all right? So I like having them kind of do this piece. For really little children, I would pre-make some of this. And I say really little, and I mean that, you know, if they're like 2.5 and under, I would pre-do this. So what you have is we have these different containers here. So this one is a ice cube tray. And I like using ice cube trays because you can wash them out. They can go in the dishwasher. It makes them really easy to clean. But you don't have to use one of these. An egg carton works just as well. So it's kind of up to you as to how you want to go about this. But what you're going to do is give them a tray to work in, and then we have all kinds of colors, paints, that are in these condiment bottles so that kids can easily squeeze these themselves. Fun thing is when you are making your own colors, instead of just using the primary colors of red, yellow, and blue, which you could definitely do, and then provide some white and some black too to mix things, you could also provide kind of a variation of those colors, like pink. Maybe this is actually really just yellow, and this is more of a turquoise blue. And so you could kind of play with those, also provide a white, and in this case, instead of providing white, we've got silver. And then you could provide like a darker, like a black or a dark gray, if you're kind of changing the color schemes. If you wanted to focus on specifically building color out of the true primary colors of red, yellow, and blue, and then adding in white and black, you could definitely weave that into this activity. Okay, but what we can do, and it's fun to have these out on your table and then letting the kids, you know, add them to these trays so that they can mix it. And tell them that they want to fill it up about halfway, right? But it's kind of, they get to choose where it goes. We're going to put these in here. And then, let's use this one. If you are having them mix the colors, you would want to provide like a little stirring stick, right? Sometimes and stir it, mix it all up. Okay, but once they've created their colors, we need them to add a little bit of water to it so that these paints are going to really spread the way we want. So what we have here, I'm going to put this down and bring this back up. We have a little pipette. Here we go. And because it's one of my favorite songs, we're going to teach you one of the best songs out there, which is the little duck pipette song. So for children, we like to say, make your hand like a little duck, and let's meet the pipette. Here's the pipette. This pipette, it doesn't like to go in our mouth. It loves to go in the duck's mouth because this thing here is, those parts, those droppers, it's just so, like, inviting to chew on, but we put it into the duck's mouth so the duck can chew on it, right? And it's in the duck's mouth, and then we're going to help the children learn how to kind of squish that bulb up and down to kind of start figuring out how this mechanism works. And we sing a song, and it goes like this. Oh, wasn't it a bit of luck that I was born a baby duck with yellow socks and yellow shoes that I may go wherever I choose. And then we have them use this part, and we're going to have the duck quack, and as we quack, we're going to squish the pipette. Are you ready? We're going to go quack, 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 quack. Okay, and then we're going to bring out some little jars where, again, we're using mason jars to tie in what's already been happening in the Swatch book. So we're going to have them push it in there, and we would sing the song again and let them kind of squirt and release in here. You're going to inevitably have somebody be like, I'm just going to squirt on my friend. It's just part of the process. But most likely they'll be so fascinated with how this works, they'll want to kind of keep practicing that. Then we're going to introduce it to their paints here, right? So we're going to have them just kind of squirt water in there. If they squirt a lot in there, it's okay. It's kind of just, we're letting them kind of see where this all goes. So we're going to kind of put that in. Then you can give them their little stirring sticks and let them stir that up, just so that basically so that the paint is, you know, a little bit more liquidy, so it'll spread better. At least that's the hope. That's the hope. All right. We're now almost ready for the next part. We're then going to introduce this supply, which is cotton balls, and we're going to let the children then put a cotton ball into each little container. Do you see that? So each one that has paint in it, we're going to put a cotton ball in. Tuck them in, put them to bed, tell them good night. Here we go. Okay, now this is where we're going to bring this and our artwork we created earlier with all of our little jar lids, right? We're going to put this on the ground. Or pretend it's the ground. I'm going to bring you back down again so you can see what's going on down here. All right, so we've got this. Here's our, I'm going to kind of do this so you can see it. We've got our tray here. We've got our artwork here. And then we're going to introduce you to these, which are these fabulous big tongs. You can get these from, you know, any home store like Target or Dollar Tree or anything like that. So the idea is you can let the kids pull up these pieces here, and then we're going to drop them onto our artwork. Let's see this so you can actually see it. So here comes one. You see this one? There it goes. Okay, and they're just going to drop them on. If you want to make it really fun, you can have them stand in a line behind something and let them throw it onto their artwork and see what happens. And they're going to want to add more, because once they get those on, they're going to want to do more, because it's really fun. And it becomes this game like, can you know, how many of these can you get inside of a circle? Do you think you can do it? Right? So having this game here. There we go. All right, then we're going to, once they've worked their way through this process, and a lot of them can do this for a really long time, we are going to introduce another material here, another tool, a fly swatter, which we're then going to go and release these. All of these colors have been captured inside of our jars, and we're going to go through and we're going to smack them down to release the color that we have captured. Okay, so then we're going to pull, then it's fun to let them pull that all up, put that away. We'll put it back over here for now. Okay, and they will just want to keep doing this over and over again because it's such a fun thing. And then you end up with this really amazing, like, just color splatted and swirled experience. Okay, so after they've done this, let's talk about this process for a second, because once they've experienced this, they're going to then want to start doing things like this. And sometimes our reaction to, like, what are you doing? That's not the part of the process. That's not what we're doing. Is to not worry about it, because they're like, wait, I've got this great tool. What can I do with it? Right? So they might start playing with the cotton balls in this way. And that's totally fine. You can kind of let them do that and see what happens. And they might start noticing things as they mix around the colors. Okay? You're going to end up with these really incredible experiences that they have, and you can kind of let these different parts of this process go on for as long as you feel like your children are engaged. And that's really it. That's the basis of this. So again, this is a messy part. The messiest part is with the fly swatters because the paint does splatter everywhere, and then also the throwing of your cotton balls because not all of them will make it onto your canvas here. Okay, so that is the main part of our art demo, and I wanted to answer some of the great questions that we received in response to our live webinar that we had. One of the questions we had, which was what is the difference between process art and craft? And I thought that was such a really great question and a wonderful one to make a distinction between. Okay, so there's a spectrum, and on that spectrum you've got craft on one end and process art on the other. And craft is really, I always kind of imagine that more of like, it's like a puzzle with a little bit of that creativity thrown in there, right? Because you get to maybe choose your color for something, you get to choose the embellishments for it, but we're all making very much the same thing. Instead of us all playing with the same materials, we're all making the same thing. We're all making hats, we're all making, you know, tote bags or something, or we're all creating ducks together. And there's a lot of the whole like A, B, C pieces. Like A goes to B and B goes to C, and then we all have these same pieces. Process art on the other end is all about this, like, it's much more about the materials you're playing with, the presentation of those materials, and just the experience of what those materials are like when you're using them. And there's really no right or wrong way to explore them. So like we did on here, I showed you how to let the kids throw these cotton balls on here, right, and then splat them on. And they might do that, and they might do it for a long, long time, and some of the kids will only do that, but others will start to be, they'll start to just be curious and wonder, what can we do? And they'll start smearing, right? Or they might start asking you, what else could we use on here besides cotton balls to dip into the paint? And they might start experimenting. Maybe they'll start picking up leaves and dipping it in and splatting it on. It's more about, there's no A, B to C. It's just, here are the materials, what can you do with them? And we use the books to be kind of, at least for Kid Artlet, because we're not all process and we're not all craft. Because all process means you're just painting with brown paint essentially, and you'd be covered in paint. That's like the extreme, the absolute extreme of process art. Whereas in craft, you know, it would be very much like, okay, you're building a robotics piece and it has to look this certain way. And there's no other way around it because you have to make it look this way, otherwise it doesn't function. So we're somewhere in the middle of all of that, right? For Kid Artlet, we're probably a little bit more closer to the process end, but we're somewhere, you know, closer to that middle ground of like, here's your structure, here's this kind of main ideas that we're working on to work through it, and then, but then once you're in it, go for it. And that's that idea again of that chaos and a fixed structure. It's like, here's your structure, here's your supplies, okay, go for it, have fun. What do you want to do? And then we as the grown-ups are really just, we're observers and mediators and curiosity leaders too, finding out like, and pointing things out, like, wow, I see you're using a lot of pink. How do you feel about this pink here? Tell me about what this is making you feel. And kind of helping kids connect to those pieces. Okay. We had another great question, which was saying that someone's 4-year-old, you know, she'll put out a project or they'll try and connect with something, but then the child has zero interest in what it is. And my response is, which is, yeah, that's totally normal, right? How many of you have done that? You put all this effort into putting something together, you put it out, and your kid's like, yeah, no thanks. So as much as we love giving you these projects to do, like with this book, this could provide a lot of inspiration. And that's why I like to give you a 3-part process project where you can say, you know, my kid would hate this part of tracing things, would hate it. But my kid would probably really love this whole concept of splatting things on. Okay. So so my suggestion was for her was to follow her child's lead. Maybe provide some materials and just open-endedly ask her, what do you want to make with these? We've got paper, we've got cotton balls, we've got paint. What can we do with this? What can we make with it? And then kind of letting it flow. Or it's always fun to embody the character that you have. It's like, if you were Swatch, right? Okay, let's pretend to be Swatch for a moment. How would you capture the colors? Can you show me by using these materials how you might create something to capture those colors with, and then letting them go and seeing what they come up with, right? So it's kind of taking what you used in that book to build that little fire, and then you as the parent and that teacher sitting there going, okay, let's stoke that a little bit more. Let's get that going. Okay. There was a really fun question, which was a teacher said that she had a lot of students who would hoard art supplies. So if she put out, she's like, how do you regulate the paint? Do you only let them use like one dab of it? How do you regulate? And I said, a lot of the times what that is because you just don't know the backgrounds of your students or the children you're working with. You don't know where they're coming from, right? But a lot of it has to do with your culture as a classroom and creating an environment where in there it is about, there's an abundance of things. It's about the use of things that we are going to share and do it together. And it's also about exposure. So my suggestion is that you actually had some sort of provocation out in the beginning of class, maybe even before you read the book or after, where you go to a really fun page like this one, and you've got these cotton balls out, and then maybe you've drawn some spirals or something on a piece of paper you've taped down or something, and then you ask them with these cotton balls, and you say, can you build a spiral? And it's just, okay, how do I build one? And maybe see if they can line it up with these cotton balls. And that way, you're introducing them to a material. They've already used it, so when it's reintroduced later, it's not this new novel thing that they want all to themselves. They've already experienced it. They've already gotten to try it out. So it's just figuring out how can you integrate some of these other projects, pieces, and materials into your routines before you're introducing the actual material project. Also, children with paint, they love paint. So that's why I like to put in these condiment bottles. You can get smaller ones, so when it's gone, right? And then I only put a limited amount out, so it's kind of like we have to share and get things around, and we remind each other, like, remember, we're all using the same paint, so we need to make sure that we are sharing and saving some for our neighbor. And that way, we're all just being kind and considerate to each other. Okay. Another one that was a really good question, which was, how do you get a colleague on board with this idea of process art when they are just all not about it, or they just don't know about it? And our suggestion is really sharing with them this concept of what craft is and what process art is, and providing a really wonderful information for them, and start talking to them about how you can have a craft which is at A, B, or C, and then that process which is more of kind of experimental, and figure out maybe how you could meet in the middle about that. Because we know it's like after a while, it's like you've been with colleagues for a long time, and if this is a very foreign concept, it makes you kind of think very differently than you normally would when it comes to doing art with children. So it's just kind of bringing up that context, sharing information like we share here at Kid Artlet, so that they become more familiar with it and say, hey, I found this really cool thing. Maybe you would like to check this out too. I'm really interested in this. So those are some of the main top questions that we received as part of our webinar series, all about book-based process art and demonstration. We hope that this was useful for you and that you found some sort of tidbit of knowledge, either to help build your wisdom that you already have, or to inspire you to do and learn more with your children with process art and books. We wanted to share with you again that we are offering for our founders only, and founders mean those are only people who are on our email list right now, which includes you, to receive 10% off of our Kid Artlet boxes, and that will include our individual boxes and our multiple month subscription boxes. So we'll be sending that out to you in your email soon. Look for it. It's for you as a thank you for being here. We also have a fabulous grouping of other resources that were inspired by all of you in the workshop, so we will be sharing those with you as well. Please always know that you can get a hold of us over on Instagram at Kid Artlet. We also have our weekly themes and challenges, so you can definitely go and share over there. You can also find us at Kid Artlet on Facebook, and then if you need to email us, it's just hello@kidartlet.com, and we are happy to respond to you. Thanks again for being here and for joining us. We will see you very soon again. Thanks a lot. Bye.